I never ever had initially thought of something called mental health. The way my industry was positioned and how we are as workers were, I felt something needed to be done in this sphere, you know, even more so for society and generally. It was my give back to society. Few months later, you realize that they had harmed themselves and some had even taken their lives. So it hit me a lot because I said I was talking to this living person 6 months back, and we had the conversations, and there was no inkling it was leading in this direction.
Good evening. You're with me on Table Talk. Before I move ahead, a quick reminder. Like, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, Jyotsna Mohan. A lot of the episodes are there. Today we're looking to discuss mental health on the segment that's very close to my heart, Hope Floats. So we are going to look at visualizing mental health, how a filmmaker has been trying to promote more mental health awareness and where he has reached and actually what took him into this space. So stay with me as I just wait for Iqbaal Rizzvi to join me and speak about how he's been promoting mental health through the various resources that are available to him. So good to finally have you with me on the show. It's been a long pending
Yes.
conversation, right? Mental health awareness is very close to your heart, is very close to mine. The more we do about it, it isn't enough. A quick reminder again, Iqbaal Rizzvi is a noted filmmaker and he's been trying to do whatever he can within his own space. And it's fascinating actually for me to see how, we are all branching out into whatever way we can to come together to that one issue, which is mental health. And, he's also been featured in the book Humans of Nurture Life, Iqbal, for his story. And I actually want to begin by asking you, what got you into this space?
It's always the right time is when you're actually there. So this, in spite of the delay, it's never ever more so important to speak about this. I never ever had initially thought of something called mental health. You know, I uh, I work in the film industry. Like we all know, it has its ups and downs, it has its certainties and uncertainties that envelop us as individuals. We are constantly, the not the surety of work, and it's purely passion driven. I mean, this industry only works if you have the passion for the work that you are doing. And when I was working as a director, when I direct, I have people from all demographies, from in what we call a runner, a spot boy, to somebody who must have given up engineering, has got into acting, the intellectual kind, the educated kind, people all with diverse mindsets, cross-cultural. This industry is beautiful. It just accepts everybody from across all cultures and social positioning. So I found myself harmonizing this whole unit of about 80 to 100 people together, and keeping it running on a daily basis. So sometimes somebody would have, a spot boy would have an off day, or a light man, or an actor, and you were just finding yourself speaking to them, uh, talking to them just on a personal level, not just about the work. And you would share advice with them. I got to realize that later all this is called behavioral management, and it constitutes as a form of counseling. I never knew any of these words, but I just realized that the way my industry was positioned and how we are as workers were, I felt something needed to be done in this sphere, you know, even more so for society and generally. It was my give back to society. But I'm just finding and talking to them and sharing their anxieties and expressing my own, it just drew me towards this field. And uh, you know, when I began, I didn't even know there was a word called mental health, to be honest. We didn't have that kind of knowledge, for this field. Fortunately, now, the world is opening up and we are ready to accept and discuss this topic. So my primary concern was to enlighten people or talk to people so that they don't take any unfortunate drastic steps towards taking one's own life or harming one's own self. So it began from there to prevent that. And later on, as I got deeper and deeper into this, I realized it all comes under the gamut of mental health. And, there are many sections to it. And I found myself educating myself over it too. So that's how it began. It just
Right.
began from a need to do something on a personal level.
Do you want to share the kind of, stories that came around you, that kind of pushed you to become a mental health advocate?
I had a few people who spoke, and we had a long conversation during the course of our working in the environment, and then a few months later, you realize that they had harmed themselves, and some had even taken their lives. So it hit me a lot because I said I was talking to this living person 6 months back, and we had the conversations, and there was no inkling it was leading in this direction, you know, and that impacted me a lot because that was something, uh, you know, personal and close to what one would feel. You see, in our society, generally or across the world, as human beings, we are only impacted when it hits us close. Till then, these are words. Then this is an environment we appreciate or say, yeah, we should. But uh, we sometimes don't reach out, primarily because it's not impacted us personally or close to us. So it did leave because there were some of them were really dear people to me, as recent as 2 months back. And I wish I could have been there or just spoken to them. So those regrets and these thoughts led me to concretize and do something more specific towards mental health.
Does our upbringing kind of, take us to a particular way, strengthen us, or, how was your upbringing? Did it help you to, kind of become this advocate? Could
So
help.
let me
Oh,
tell you, Jyotsna, I'm from a boarding school. I've received education from a boarding school whose motto is never give in. These are powerful words. When we joined, we just sang the school song. I didn't even know anybody when I walked into the dormitories. And today I have some fabulous relationships. But the ability to navigate that process because of your own thought process, there was nobody guiding you. You had, of course, teachers and matrons guiding you and giving a helping hand. But so were 52 more people in that dormitory who were seeking that. So you finding your own path, navigating, getting yourself to think. There was no social media, there were no phones. It was more you and the people around you as friends. And that's what has taught me and has become the fulcrum of my support system. Every time I find myself in a sticky situation, I go back in time and I think when I was doing that, or when I had to submit a homework, or if I had to navigate, time management. Time management was a very big thing. Studies, it wasn't just about studies, it was a wholesome experience. So I learned a lot from there.
today's children, you put them in that spot with social media. There's a lot of pressure on them. There's a lot of, there's lots going on all around them, and mental health is, it's flung very casually by the generation.
People are looking to compensate for their personal lives and relationships at home with their loved ones, with their parents, with their siblings, and they're trying to seek it out in the outside world. The likes and the admiration coming from an unknown person gives them far greater security because they are not questioned. It's a sense of validation. So many likes, so many followers. So and you live in a world where you feel you're protected because you're only imparting that much information you want to as you wish to. And what's the best part about social media that the kids are attracted to? It's like a 24-hour scenario, right? Accessible at any time, at any
Exactly.
space, at any day. We are trying to seek solace in a world uh, with people who don't even know us. And it all begins because we are somewhere lying to look for redemption and validation to compensate for our personal relationships that we are actually having. We are losing the lack of
So,
conversations.
how are you sharing the experiences that you are seeing
Yes.
through your films, through your
So,
art, through your work?
what I do is when let's say, when I'm executing a project, okay, which has its own defined storyline, for situations and reactions, I try to keep it very real and in a space, ki how would I have reacted back then? Or suppose the character is a brash person, your character take is that you're brash and you're spontaneous. How would he react back then? So I go back to that time, frame and age group of these people, and try to relate it personally with myself and see how I would have done it and imbibe it with what the character demands are, given his scenario. Is he from an urban outlook? Is he from a poor background? And I try to give it a sense of realism. When we work television, we of course have to have a lot of drama too, but that's the dictate and the demand of the medium. We got to respect that. But I try to keep the emotions real. I try to present it as how we would react given in a lifelike situation. So I imbibe my personal experiences with what the script is demanding of me.
The way OTT platforms are going, that's kind of changed the narrative a little bit. You know, Bollywood was a little bit more conventional in terms of its filmmaking. OTT is experimenting a little
Yes,
bit more, bringing in those nuances,
yes.
into their
Because
making.
definitely OTT has just changed the whole way we communicate or speak the language of storytelling to the world. Because uh, now, when we were in TV, we make TV shows. There are a lot of dictates also of the guidelines that we have to follow, plus the imaging of the particular channel that has to be kept in mind. So there are a lot of already do's and don'ts that we have to follow. In OTT, the spectrum is larger, the tolerance level is higher, the vision is greater because as if I talk about India, we are allowed to push the envelope, which wasn't allowed for so many years. So OTT, has definitely changed it. It's bringing in more of realism. It's going into a world uh, where we have probably heard of but never experienced, like rural India, if we were speaking. So we're getting to see fascinating aspects of our own country and cultures through this medium. We are presenting it, in a realistic manner for the audience. So there is a lot more relatability. People say, "Oh, I know this happens in my town," and if I'm not from that town, I say, "Oh, wow, my God, this is India," and it gives me an aspirational feel. There is no set formula for OTT because the topic could be anything. Unlike films, where you have songs and dances and or emotional storyline, but it's like a format. Here, because of so many episodes, sometimes you're allowed to play it differently.
So, you've been involved with Bollywood in the sense you've seen it up close and personal. Your mom was a film actress. So, have you over the years seen some kind of a change, when it comes to acceptance or talk about mental
Yes.
health within the industry?
25 years back, I didn't even know what was about mental health. You know, I mean, we didn't even know, uh, the stigma attached to counseling was considered it was very big. You could not tell someone I'm going for counseling. Just saying that I'm going to visit a psychologist. People will say, "क्या?" Sorry for my language, but क्या पागल है क्या जो तेरे को जाना है उधर? It was very black and white. If you went there, means something wrong with your brain. It was just left at that. It was a world. So I saw My mom talking and advising people, which today constitutes as counseling, and being there for friends, being there for each other. So somewhere from there, I picked that up. And in today's time, it's more accepting. I mean, there is the stigma still attached, but it is a little more open when we can talk about it. Imagine 25 years back, even if we didn't have social media, you and me talking over print on a news channel about mental health. How many would relate to what are we trying to say? The fact that we can sit today and a lot of people joining in and listening states the fact that there is greater acceptability, and people are more keen to voice or understand, sitting behind, letting people talk and giving them a better understanding of what is mental health and how can they imbibe it for their own self.
When should you go for counseling? So, through all your advocacy, have
I
you got
think,
an answer for that?
in fact, that when you ask yourself this question, is based on the fact that you are uh, having a certain feeling in your mind for which you're not getting answers, and it's important enough for you to play on your mind or be with you on a daily basis. I think that's the time you should seek out and ask a few people around. This is what it is, and who should I be speaking to about it? And go to a professional if need be. It's very simple. It comes from within you. It's you who should, and most importantly decide, and then have the courage to tell your loved ones or the elders or the people around you that, you know what, I think I need to speak to someone outside the family. There's nothing wrong in it. You got to be courageous enough to do that. Yeah, we have got to be
Absolutely
courageous
nothing wrong.
enough to take that step. It's like going to a doctor when you have a physical ailment, right? And that's more accepted. So let's talk about this. Maybe you just need some clarity. It doesn't have to be an issue, which you think is an issue, but you realize, oh my God, it's not an issue, but I've got clarity into what I speak, or what I want to do. There are always sacrifices everyone makes in their lives. You play many roles. You play the role of of the provider. You play the role of a father. You play the role of a husband. You're playing the role of a parent, a sibling. So you're going through a lot of roles yourself, and to match it, to make it meet together, to harmonize and keep your relationship and life on a even keel, on a proper platform, you have to make sacrifices, each one makes it in their own space in different manners. But we all do it because we have all burnt both ends of the candles to reach where you are. As a person, I'm working 13 hours a day if I'm shooting. Uh, Carte blanche, it's a given. Besides my traveling time in my city, Mumbai. So we're burning both the candles. Then you have to be there for your family. You want to be there for your family. You want to be there for your friends. You want to be there for yourself. It's important to make time for yourself. So you have to sacrifice your approach along the years to achieve whatever you have set out to achieve, your small targets, your goals, to see where you are. So I'll just give you an example. When I joined this field, I joined as an assistant director. Okay, and my first boss was Mr. Ken Ghosh. We did the first music videos in India. I wanted to be a director from the outset. I was very clear I wanted to be a director. Fortunately for me, and I've been able to achieve that ambition of mine. I was having this discussion with my mom. She says, if you want to be a good director, you must know the art of editing. So I sacrificed my being an assistant director for 4 years, and I worked as an editor. I learned the base of editing right from scratch to a culmination of a project as an editor. So I sacrificed my directorial dreams to become an editor, to learn a craft, to learn the crafting of executing my thought process. But I never lost sight of my goal, but I sacrificed being on the field so I could one day be on the field far more successfully. So that was a sacrifice I had made in context to my life.
But how do you juggle filmmaking and your mental health,
So,
advocacy?
when I'm not shooting is when I try and schedule conversations like these or conversations with at colleges or with an NGO called Nurture Life. They help me set it up because they have a greater reach and they're doing great work in mental health. So I use that time when I'm shooting. I'm so preoccupied with the shoots that it becomes difficult. So I juggle between my free time and my shooting time between these two projects. And sometimes what I do is I make short films based around mental health, which is filmmaking is my forte. Mental Creating awareness is my passion. I combine the two and I make the short films based around it in an educative, entertaining manner and present it. So I harmonize my passion with my forte and then present it, across colleges or at suicide prevention cells. Visual medium is the most powerful medium, and I think we need to use it more to create awareness around mental health. My song for singer Shan, Tanha Dil Tanha Safar, that really was about mental health. It was spoke about depression. And the challenge lay in 3.5 minutes to convey a story around it and yet leave a positive message.
I think the more we do, the better it is. There is no less and there's no more for this. I think everybody has to just keep going, and fantastic that you're going to schools and colleges with your work, because that's where I think the awareness needs to begin from. And I think that's where the awareness also stays the longest. It's where it's
Yes,
incorporated at its
absolutely.
earliest and at its best. And I think that's amazing that you're doing it, and those short films that you're doing. Conversations like these don't really end. So I'm just going to say bye for now. And I'm sure we'll be back again to take this forward and to continue, and the inspiring work that you're doing and the inspiring words that you brought out on the show today. So it was so brilliant to speak with you finally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jyotsna, for having me here. Your book also inspires a lot of people around because it shows the true face of what the teens are facing. So please do, guys, read Stone Shamed Depressed. It's a fantastic book. It has been an eye opener for me. Please don't be stigmatic about uh, mental health. Reach out if you need, and I know, and talk to your loved ones first. And I'm sure they will be supportive. Otherwise, there are places where you will find support. But please, please, you owe it to yourself. You're your own best friend, and make sure you maintain that all your life.